Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. Returning listeners, great to have you back. New to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. You picked a friggin' great episode to join us on if this is your first time, because we have just an outstanding guest today. Alisa Gracheva is joining us. Born in the former Soviet Union, grew up in post-Soviet Union Russia. Her story is super interesting. We're not going to spoil it by talking about it too much here, but she is now in the mental health care field and is just very well educated, uh, very good at explaining things in a way that will make sense and resonate, is very open minded and talks about things that aren't necessarily all mainstream. Don't get me wrong, she's got tons of mainstream practical experience, but just an overall awesome lady. We're very fortunate to have her on the podcast. So without further ado, let's bring Alisa on right now. So Alisa, thank you so much for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. I've been so excited to have this conversation.
Yes, me too. Thank you for having me. It's exciting. Sure.
Yeah, we had Alisa and I had a great conversation, and she comes eminently qualified to talk about and share from a professional perspective a lot of the things we talk about on our podcast. And she's got a great backstory to how she got to where she's at. And she'll share that with us as well as educate us on all sorts of good things that she works on with clients and tools that you can use to kind of change your mental approach and change your thought process. It's an evolution, not a revolution. So it takes a while, right? So things don't happen overnight, but they never happen if you don't try. And so we're going to talk through all that with Alisa, and I've been very much looking forward to this conversation. So, with all of that said, Alisa, why don't you just start with just a brief background of your life story? Where were you born? Where'd you grow up? Where'd
Mhm.
you go to school? How'd you kind of broad strokes how you got to where you're at now? And then what we do is go back and start asking more detailed questions about like big experiences in your life that made an impact on you. Then we get to what you do now, and you can educate us all on all the cool things that you have learned and all the cool things you work with clients on.
Oh, yes. So my journey began actually in Soviet Union. So I'm a Soviet baby. So it's been quite some time, of course. I was brought up and raised in Russia afterwards when the Soviet Union fell apart. And at the age of 18, I moved to the United States by myself. Actually, that was a move that my mom didn't know I'm living forever. So that was an interesting experience. And I was very young. And again, all of that and life in Russia was very rough as well. And it took me a lot to work and process that. Again, I'm in mental health field, so observing my own experiences and how they affected me, plus the transgenerational trauma that we now know a little bit more about, and moving down here to immigration process, adjusting to new culture, to new people, to new environment when you don't have no people that you know, no family, you don't really have, you're not able to communicate properly just yet, and getting yourself in some situations that are very questionable because, of course, when you're fresh off the boat, especially at the age of 18, what can you know about life? I know we all think we know about life at that age, and I think we know some, but that was looking back now, that was pretty brave of me to do this move, but I needed to back in the day. And so that led me to a lot of different experiences in my life here as I know it. And it's been now since 17 years that I live here. So it's almost half a life and most of my conscious life. So my development into a human that I am today was a little rough, but I think that was essential for me to get to where I am now and the service that I provide for others. So I'm grateful for every single step, even the most painful ones. I'm grateful for all of them because they created and brought me here. So we're able to have this talk right now about what I do, and I'm deeply passionate about that.
Love that. Absolutely love it. And yeah, I think you undersold yourself to say, well, that was kind of a big deal. You moved literally around the world to a foreign country by yourself at the age of 18. That is wildly courageous thing to do. That's we'll talk more about that. So what when you left Russia, and so for those that don't follow history or uninitiated, the Soviet Union was a conglomeration of states that made up the Soviet Union. So people think Russia and the Soviet Union are the same thing. They are not. So all the Stan countries were a part of the Soviet Union. Georgia was part of the Soviet
Mhm.
Union. Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union.
Mhm.
And when it broke up in 1991, Russia proper became Russia proper, and all these states kind of declared their independence and went on their way, and they've been kind of making their own way the last 30 years. So, a little history lesson
Mhm.
for you folks here on Salty Ginger Talk. But you you grew up in Russia post collapse of the Soviet Union. Is that right, Alyssa?
Yeah, yeah, it was a rough time, and we still had the consequences of the Soviet Union itself. So again, life was pretty rough. It was, I would say it was, we were poor, right? But I'm very appreciative of my mom that she never made us feel that way. So that was, of course, we didn't use those quotes that people use right now. Well, think about children in those, third world countries. We didn't have that because we were kind of in that space as well at that time, but it was rough wearing. I was wearing clothes after my brother. We had to eat, it was breakfast was my grandfather actually, who was at war in Second World War. He was making potatoes on bones. I was thinking it's potatoes with meat every morning, but my mom actually brought me this surprise. I was like, yeah, we actually didn't have any meat then. She's like, it was the bones and they had a little bit of something left, but it's just to give it flavor. But yeah, she's
Mm,
like, no, we didn't have meat. So again, life was very simple. And I think that humble experience that a lot of people had to grow up with, just like me, left us more grateful for things that we do have, even though, again, we're going to talk more about things like gratitude, which is essential for us, for our fulfillment, for satisfaction, contentment. And I think we're not practicing that enough because everything is given to us in a certain way. If I want to eat this food, I'm going and I'm buying that. We don't appreciate something that's easily accessible. So I'm grateful for that rough upbringing, and also grateful that now I can compare the two and actually boost that gratitude within myself as well. But yes, it was rough. It was rough in how we also connected to one another. Because again, now we know about psychology and how parents should be, right, with kids, how we talk about different love languages, how to provide to those needs. Our parents didn't know what they were doing in a way, right? Especially in where I grew up in. It was a very cold environment. Yes, Russians have, and Russian speaking people, I would say that way. They have big soul. It's true. It's really good and warm, and they would rather give you a place to sleep if you don't have any place to sleep, rather than, again, they're not going to be telling you, "Oh, hello, how are you doing?" like we're accustomed here. But they would give you and invite you over to their house if they've never seen you before. But again, that still coolness and how I think we presented emotions back in the day was very different. And so again, not knowing how to navigate your own emotions, I think it's a lot of people who are older than this generation we're surrounded by right now. I think we all can relate that it was different in how we again express ourselves and how it affected how we actually are now as adults as well, and learning all of these needs that we have and how to express ourselves in the right way, how to show emotions too, and how to process them within ourselves. We know everybody has struggles with that, whether it's difficult emotions like anger, sadness, anxiety. All of those things can contribute to how we feel, and I think learning that from childhood would have been great. I didn't have that option, not because again my mom done a beautiful job. I love her so much. We're very, very close. But again, I wish certain things would have been a little different for me. And maybe again, on the other hand, maybe that's what boosts again that desire to seek something else out of my home country. So yeah, there's a lot of layers to that. But being grateful for that rough experience for sure made a big impact in how I provide what I do right now, the service that I provide for others.
yeah, that's awesome. That's so well said. And I appreciate that you have perspective on it now that, hey, it wasn't all rainbows and unicorns. However, the fact that it wasn't all rainbows and unicorns has made you the person you are now and has probably contributed to the great job that you do in working with clients because you can have empathy, firsthand empathy for them because you've experienced some of those things. And we'll talk about this. We'll talk about sympathy and the difference between sympathy and empathy as we move through our
Mhm.
conversation, because I think that's a very important distinction. There's, in my opinion, not a lot of use for sympathy, but empathy is terribly important. And
Yes.
I try to have empathy. I rarely have sympathy for people, though. So you moved to the States at the age of 18. What made you want to move? Like that's literally 6,000, 7,000 miles away from your family and everything you knew. What made you want to do that?
So the answer to that question I actually found just last year when I was 34, believe it or not. So it took me a long time and a lot of healing that I went through myself. It was, again, in many different layers. I worked through a lot of traumatic experiences. And only at 34, I realized that I've had, so with trauma, and we're going to talk more about it later, but there are two components. There is the mental component and the physiological component. And we're not aware of how trauma is stored inside. So for me, I actually been dissociated since I was a very little girl. So for me, experience of, again, even feeling life or being present in life, experiencing life was already very weird. I couldn't align with people. I didn't have many friends. So for me to find that belonging, because again, there's a difference between attachment and belonging. And so for me, I always felt like an attachment, right? I'm extra to something that's already whole, and I could never fit in into the crowd of people or anybody really. And so I've had this very weird experiences where I couldn't relate to people, and I also was not able to experience life in that way. I always wanted to escape mentally. I've created this, I wouldn't say world, but it was a weird thing that I couldn't yet understand when I was back there. But then last year when I began deep work on myself with EMDR, which we're going to talk about a little bit later as well, and processing those things, suddenly those experiences begin to open up and I begin to understand what they meant and how they were created, how I've experienced that, what did I do to, as far as avoidance techniques to escape reality. And so that was a search for something. I wanted to belong. I never felt like I could belong. I wasn't yet that close with my mom back then. My father was absent too. It was rough. It was a lot of very rough experiences watching over my grandparents who lived with us as well. My grandma was losing her eyesight. My grandfather had Alzheimer's. So it was, and my mom was the one taking care of everybody. And so I think it was more of number one, I think it was destined to be, right. Wherever I am, it was supposed to happen in that way. But all of those experiences that I've had as a little girl, and I've been on a search for answers, for meaning, because a lot of things that I looked into, they didn't provide the answers I was seeking. The same with religion, right? I respect every and all religion, but it didn't give me the answers I had the questions for. And so when I was asking, they're not giving me, I'm like, okay, I'm going to search because I don't accept this answer. It doesn't make sense to me. I need something that will resonate, that I will understand. And so for me, that was just searching for those answers, and that led me that far. And I think the pain that I've dealt with since I was little was that much that the pain of separation wasn't as intense, or maybe not having those connections with others also contributed to that. So wanting to find different place and just, I was in search for something, search for meaning.
Got it. That makes perfect sense when you talk through it the way you just talked through it. Um, so yeah, super interesting. Did you speak English when you moved to the States?
Not very well. I actually used to speak German, and that was as good as Russian for me. Yeah, I've spent time in Germany as well, and that's what I was educated with that. And now it's English. I can understand what I hear in German, but I'm not able to have a conversation anymore. It goes actually in Russian too. English is more of my first language than Russian right now. I think in English. So for me to even speak Russian, I have to translate, and it sounds so weird sometimes. I'm like, I can't just think in Russian. So yeah, so English wasn't, and that was again a lot of exposure to people. I didn't have communities, Russian speaking communities too much. So for me, it was again working in environments where it was either Hispanic population or Caucasian, but again, it was Native Americans, native from here, right, from the state.
Sure, yeah.
And so, yeah, being thrown in, I think is the best way to learn a language when you don't have anybody to speak your native language with. And so that becomes, you don't have a choice. So you have to learn. And so I had to learn, and yeah, but it took me quite a long time as well.
I bet. Yeah. From what I was raised in the United States, so English is the only language that I know. It's interesting. My youngest son just got engaged, and his fiance, my soon to be daughter in law, is Puerto Rican. And I mean, Puerto Rico is
Yeah.
America, it's a territory of the United States, but it's Hispanic, and she speaks both languages, and her family speaks both
Hmm.
languages. In fact, her mom's husband only speaks Spanish, and so now I'm relearning. I used to when I was in high school and college. I lived in the LA. So I'm from Portland, Oregon originally, but
Oh,
lived
yeah.
in LA where there's a heavy concentration of Spanish speaking people, mostly
Hmm.
Mexican. And so I knew kind of broken. I could speak broken Spanish back in the day, but I'm 53 now. I'm a dinosaur. And so I've forgotten all of it and I've got to relearn it because I'm not going to have people talking about me and not know what they're saying.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good motivation, right?
Yeah, totally.
Um,
Where in the country, where in the United States did you move to when you first came to the United States?
Florida, that was the place, and I've been here since then. I moved a lot down here, but it was the same kind of the same county or close by, but still, yeah, it was around here. I moved a lot, 25 times. This is my 25th place in 17 years, and I'm not moving anymore. Some ways, some stories were just really horrific and moving for me. And even my dog that's been with me for 13 years, the oldest one, he is freaking out when he sees like, boxes or packing or things like that. He gets really anxious. I'm like, we're not moving. It's all good. We're not moving. We're good now. So yeah.
The dog flashbacks, huh? From the moving boxes. That's funny.
Yeah. Dog, and I used to be a ferret. I used to have a ferret before. He was 9 when he passed away, but he was freaking out even more. That poor ferret, he's been with me since I just moved here. It was 2 months. I was 2 months here and I got him. And so he lived with me for 9 years. And when he passed, I mean, he's seen it all. He's seen so many things, so many stories too. So yeah, my animals are my family.
Hmm. So what did you do when you got here? Did you start working? Did you start going to school? Like, what was your entry into American society?
So of course, I started working. I'm a workaholic. I'm Capricorn, so for me, I have to be making money in whatever way. And I was making $6 per hour. I worked in a food court. I started there, so it was quite. Actually, that was a little later, but there was a situation with the person that was really bad. While I still had visa because I moved, I had a visa, and then the visa expired, and I was sexually harassed by the owner of the place I worked at, and told that I know what I have to do to get, everything to get situated. And I was
Yikes.
like, I'm out. It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. And so yeah, it was rough. Again, it was rough. A lot of people that I've met, it was a rough experience. But yeah, I always worked. I was grateful to have a job even for $6 per hour. I was miserable, but I was grateful because again, you need to eat. I want to eat. But my also from back from Russia, I actually had a background in ballet and dancing and I performed there. And so here I also started getting jobs as a performer. So I've been on stage from that point, from I think I arrived in 2008, from 2009. I've been on stage for 8 years until I left the scene because I transitioned fully to what I do now. But I've been in school throughout that entire time. So I always had minimum of 2 or 3 jobs at a time. I didn't have days off. I would always work, whether it's morning or night. So it was always like it was a very busy schedule for me along with the school. And so 4 years later, I decided that something has to change. So I wanted to get a career. And so I went to get my bachelor's and I was also getting, enrolled in there and then started to study. And I thought I had a pretty good English by then. And then when I started reading professional literature, I had to translate every second word. And it was a nightmare because I didn't know anything. It was so rough it was very, very rough to study for me. And then yeah, that's how I started moving through this journey of getting educated and that started in 2012. So the journey began there with psychology, specifically with mental health.
Nice. What made you choose that field? What interested you about that field?
Life as well, because after I moved here and I started getting into all of this very unpleasant, my very first relationship was very abusive, sexually, physically, mentally, verbally. And that was, again, I thought that was normal. I actually didn't know I was abused in the meantime. Because again, I think it's, again, I know it's a sensitive topic for a lot of people, but I think we don't have enough awareness and women get trapped in those relationships, whether because it's normalized within their homes. And so for them, it's kind of normal. That was not my case, but it was just a first relationship. And I thought that's how every couple is going through, and we're going to fix it. We're going to work on this until actually, thankfully, he ended that relationship. I was devastated. I was not in a good shape at all. And so after that, when I started to recalibrate a little bit, there was another situation with another person that was really bad, and I had to put him to prison myself. So it was a lot of raw things. And I was like, okay, the only one common denominator in all of this is me. So what is going on with me that I'm attracting this crazy experiences? And so I'm like, I need to figure it out. And I went to actually I went to a mental health professional. And after then I think it was 3 sessions that we did, and I understood the person did not understand me at all. And I overgeneralized everybody else. I'm like, people don't know what they're doing. mental health counselors, they don't know what they're doing. And so I wanted to find a different way. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna look at it from within. I'm gonna do it myself for myself. So I actually went to understand what was going on. I always been on this journey to master yourself, to be better in whatever way. And so that was the way for me to work on those things that I felt I didn't have the answers for. So I got to find them. And so psychology became something that I was inspired by. So that was my journey.
Oh my gosh, what a story. So one of the things I try to do so we're fortunate we attract really high caliber people like you to our podcast, and we have such interesting conversations with people. And I'm always so grateful that they're willing to share and talk about tough things on our
Mhm.
podcast, because, like you said, I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm the only one going through this, or nobody knows what this is like, or this is normal. I just have to deal with it. And by getting those things out in the open, it lets people know, hey, there's lots of other people going through very similar things to the things I'm going through. And I just really appreciate you being so candid about all of those things. And it
Mhm.
also, one of the things we see from our guests without fail, every single person we have on the podcast, is they have built really good lives for themselves. I always say because of, not in spite of, the difficult things that they have encountered. And what got them to where they are is taking action. And I heard you talk about taking action over and over and over again, even though you might not have had a final destination in mind, even though you might not have known exactly what you were searching for or where you might find it. You kept taking action, and it's led you
Mhm.
to a really good spot. So I really appreciate you being willing to talk about some of the rough spots in your travels, because
Mhm.
we're going to pivot now and get all of Alisa's professional experience and talk about some really cool stuff. She's learned all this because of all of the things that she has done and all of the work that she has put in. And so I just want to call that out to listeners before we get into this stuff. She's not from the ivory tower that just floated through the ether of higher education to get to where she's at. She has lived a lot of these things and now has trained and built a great career on helping other people deal with these things. And she takes a different approach than a lot of people. I don't know if different's the right way to say it, but she talks about and counsels different things than I've heard lots of people talk about or counsel. And so I'm very interested and exploring those topics with you. So, with that said,
Mhm.
let's jump into it. How would you describe your practice and what you do right now?
I like to word it that I work as a trauma specialist. For me, I'm a licensed clinician. Again, I'm licensed in the state of Florida, but I also look at other modalities that maybe are not as kind of, I wouldn't say accepted in the field, but they're not as common in the field right now as I would like them to be. And I think there's a lot of power in there because of the experiences I've had serving people with unconventional modalities as well. I combine spirituality with mental health, and spirituality contains a lot of different ways of meditation, sound healing, energy work. Pandora Star, there's a light therapy that's also very profound. And I think educating ourselves on a lot of different ways that exist can also open up those horizons and find solutions that we need for ourselves. Because not every person will need a different approach. One size doesn't fit all. And working with every individual client, I provide the same amount, but things that may be appropriate for them. And so combining a lot of things and having a lot of different strategies and techniques to choose from and to provide to clients too, and then they have to take it and run with it, right? But my job is to create the space and provide them the tools to use and explain how to use them and show them and maybe experience certain things with them as we work together. But naturally, yeah, trauma specialty. I love trauma. I'm very, very passionate about this work, and being there's nothing better than being next to someone who is transforming themselves in front of me. When I'm witnessing this transformation, there's nothing is the greatest reward I can describe as a human, to see someone else taking what I've provided for them and they're making difference for themselves with those tools. Because again, they're responsible for their success, and they will be responsible for their, I'm going to call it failure or a lesson or a setback, right? Not everybody's ready to change right now, and that's okay. it took me a while to come to the point when I said, I can't do this anymore. I have to change. I'm not going to be stuck in this situation. And so I think I provide that space for people and give them the choice. They want to start changing now or later. But naturally, I love to just be there for them, for their rough parts, for their rough falls and moments, and for the transformative experiences that they will have, hopefully. And yeah, I love to see people change. It's such a beautiful scene.
That's that's awesome. So if I was gonna, I think the way, at least the way I think about it, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you try to open people's eyes to the things that they're working through, give them tools to work through those things, and then your goal is to send them out so they can thrive and build their own life using those tools in the way that works for them. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. And there's a lot of specific approaches, and we're going to go through them as well, like CBT, EMDR, very powerful technique. And again, they're just following their own brain. Their brain is healing itself as well through this. There are also a lot of somatic therapy as well, somatic exercises that we do with them, but that's mostly for me to guide them at first, because a lot of people, we don't even know how unaware of our physiology we really are, because we live in this boxes, the phones, computers, and even the prison of our heads sometimes, because we're so overstimulated that this is the story of our mind every single day. And it's usually the same story, or, very fast paced kind of things that we accumulated throughout the day from reels and movies and TV and news and other people as well. And so taking the time to attune to yourself, that's both scientific and spiritual approach as well to healing, because there we target both. We target how to reconnect with yourself as a human by finding something so much more sacred within yourself, this energy that runs your life, and that allows the bigger picture for the trauma work as well. Because if we look at trauma just from human perspective, then we're victims in many cases. But if we look at it from a little different perspective and say, you know what, I don't know what's writing this scenario for my life, but I gotta trust it, because somehow it's guiding me somewhere. I just have to get the lesson from this moment right now. What's the lesson? Let me figure it out. No matter how hard it is, I have to find a solution. And so that becomes a beautiful, again, experience of taking accountability for our own actions and our own healing. And if we do that, then we're much easier to find the answers we seek as well. Because if I constantly blame experiences, life, and or my guides or whatever the case, or other people, we're not going to be able to change, because for us to change when others are at fault, they have to change first for me to get better. But if I take responsibility, I say, okay, maybe I should set a boundary with that person because I don't feel very well next to them. That's not a great relationship. And maybe certain experiences that we know are not good for us. But that requires, again, certain level of awareness as well, to know, is my life going the way, the highest road, right? The best way it can. And if the answer is no, then let's do some work. If the answer is yes, why you're coming to me? If everything works. So I think everybody has their own choice to make before they start that transformation. And yeah, I respect everybody's decision about it.
Yeah, that's a great approach. So how does one determine if their life is on the right trajectory? Like how would I know? Let's just say for a second, like I'm a bad example because I've always been very confident and I don't struggle with a lot of the things that I've heard other people talk about struggling with. And that's not a value judgment in any way, shape, or form. I always try to qualify those types of statements because my wife, who's an awesome lady, I've been married to her for 33 years, has always told me, when you say things like that, you don't mean it uh, as a value judgment, but a lot of people take it as a value judgment. So, like, I'm not afraid of many things. That can be bad. Like, fear is a good thing in some instances because it prevents you from making choices or doing things that you shouldn't do. And I
Yeah.
wind up in some shitty situations because I was too fucking stupid to just go, hey, that's bad and dangerous. I should stay away from that. I'm like, oh, what's that over there? And I go wandering right into it. Right. So it's not always awesome. Like people think when I say those things, it's awesome. But let's just assume for a second I'm trying to assess my life and see where it's at. What's the advice for people on determining, hey, I've got things on a good path, or I don't have things on such a good path, and maybe I could use some help.
I think the starting point is our emotions. If you're happy, you don't have to question whether you're doing the right thing or not. If something is off, if you feel stressed, if you feel overwhelmed, anxious, depressed, angry, a lot of times, maybe it's you find this people that are so irritating in every corner, right? I think that's the problem is with us, not with them, really, because they're just reflecting back those things we haven't mastered. And our emotions are the greatest reflection for us to look into. But yes, emotions can be the one. Again, people, I don't think we give ourselves enough credit because oftentimes when people have to do something, have you ever heard someone say, well, yeah, I have to drink less, but I don't really drink that much and it's only on the weekends. And they have the answer. They know they have to change it. That's why they're questioning, but they're trying to justify it and they try to find, right? And that's just, example out there. But again, there's always those things. If I need to justify something for myself, that's probably not the best route if I need to justify whatever that is. Well, I'm going to sleep too late. I have to wake up in the morning. But, I really don't have time for myself during the day. So I want to watch this movie at night. You have the answer. We have the answers. We're just now willing to either accept it or just sit with it and say, okay, I don't want to be honest with myself. I'm only cheating myself if I'm trying to justify something that I know at heart it's not good for me. So I think getting honest with yourself and just we have the answers if we really want to get them. And that's again, that's our power. And if you don't have the answers for yourself, well, there's more work to be done than even starting to work on trauma. It's just again reconnecting and being honest because we have to be honest with ourselves. We can lie to other people. We can never lie to ourselves. That's why again, all of these justifications have to go. Blame's got to go. Um, and again, saying, you know what, I'm gonna be getting uncomfortable and I gotta love it. And if my emotions are the ones that I see that they're the problem right now, I'm not feeling very great, then there's definitely work to be done. I think emotion says a lot about where we are.
Got it. That's that's a great way to frame it, and I appreciate you explaining it the way that you did. We did an episode. So we publish 5 episodes a week. We have 3 episodes that are interviews like this, and then
Mhm.
I'll do a separate episode on Tuesday and Thursday where I pick a topic and just talk about that topic from my perspective. And I say it a lot just to make sure everyone understands I am not a therapist. I am not clinically trained. However, I've been alive for 53 years. I've been in a great relationship for 30 plus years. I raised 3 productive boys who are out in society doing good work. And so I've learned a thing or two, through life. And I think life is a great teacher if you're willing to learn the lessons that it teaches you. Um,
Mhm.
but with all of that said, sometimes you can't find the answers on your own. And that's where people would come and seek help from someone like you. And
Mhm.
just looking through, doing my research ahead of our episode, and we talked about some of this briefly in our first
Mhm.
conversation when we spoke a couple months ago. That's why I was excited is because, like you had said, you will speak about and use some techniques that are not as mainstream as, say, what people usually picture. When people picture a psychologist or a therapist or a mental health professional, they have this image of going in a room and laying on a couch and talking about their feelings. That's what they picture. Well, you know what I mean? Like when they think
Mhm.
about therapy, and you focus on and talk about some different things, and you've got them listed on a couple of your bios and um, social media accounts and whatnot. So let's talk about spiritual counseling. What is spiritual counseling, and what does that approach look like when someone comes to see you?
Yeah, spiritual counseling is not usually what people come for, I would say, but some people do prefer their therapist to have those qualifications in a way, right? At least to be open to that. And I love to explore that with people. Actually, it's even more exciting for me to be bringing that to the table with someone who never thought they even wanted to explore spirituality and then finding for themselves that they're so spiritual all along. I've had a male client who's incredible. I love him so much. He's great. He's older gentleman. And when I ask him, because I ask people to rate different areas of life, physical, mental, emotional, and so on. And spiritual is one of them. And I asked him, what do you feel like? Where are you on from 0 to 10 on the spiritual? And he said 0. And I said, what do you mean? I know your journey. You're doing so much good to other people all the time. Like, what do you think spirituality is? He said, well, I was traumatized by Christianity, by Catholicism. So he said, I never wanted to do anything with that. And so that opened up for him a way of looking at spirituality differently. And that gave him a lot of different tools that he accepted. He decided to open himself up to that and receive that. We need to understand going into counseling, whether it's spiritual or not. I love the quote of Albert Einstein: we can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. So we gotta be working on releasing all of this old patterns, all of this, or being open to release the old patterns and the beliefs and the worldviews that we've had, because we're not going to find solution in there. You've tried already. That's why you're here. That didn't work for you. So let's look at other things. And I think when people come and they have this open mind and open heart to things, they can get a lot out of it. I mean, we all probably can. Even talking to someone who has a different perspective in life, because we all know now beliefs is something that we learn. We're never born with it. And the fact that they feel so true is only because we practiced them for so long. So sometimes we need to question our beliefs. And for me personally, was when a big transformation happens when I ask myself in the past, when I ask myself, what if everything I believe in is not true? Oh, and suddenly you get an open field of things to think about that ain't what you believed before. So it can give such freedom in the way we look at ourselves, the world, other people, and things that we need to change as well, because sometimes we don't have the awareness yet. And so spirituality as well helps people to navigate experiences that may be very difficult from a space of it was given to me for a reason and I can get stronger from that in the end. But there is still a way to go. And sometimes, again, it's very critical condition. People have really intense symptoms that require not to go into spirituality just yet because they live in the survival state. And oftentimes people I work with, it's a trauma survivors, and they already live, they live in survival mode all the time because they've been conditioned through that. So spirituality may come a little bit later once they learn to self-regulate and work on the basic things that usually it's the mind processes and the body, again, self-regulation. And then once they're able, because once we are in the sympathetic dominance, once we go into survival state, our neocortical function goes down. We're not able to make proper decisions. I cannot be looking around at scenery and smell roses when I have a lion sitting next to me. I got to run, right? I got to do something to save myself. But unfortunately, in our society today, most of us are walking next to a lion and we don't even realize that. We're driving on the street. I'm in Florida. We're driving, you see what's happening on the street. And I was one of those people too. It took me years to work on road rage. And I'm going to say that openly. I struggled with that myself. And now I look back and I say, wow, that was not smart at all. That was never, it's everybody, somebody can have a gun, you know? And I'm here and doing a lot of things to piss them off. Not a smart way to live. But again, it comes with awareness. We have to become aware first and realize that what I think I'm entitled to or what I believe is justified may not be as smart as I think. Even though I would like everybody to drive as beautifully as me, right? Following the laws and doing all that. That ain't the thing in Florida. So we gotta adjust to that and not to think, oh, I'm a queen, why you're cutting me off right now? It's my street. We can't do that. So we have to adapt to the environment and also be a little more smart and get that self-awareness. Who is struggling because I'm pissed off right now and pressing the horn and being yelling at them and doing, I'm the one who is in the survival mode right now and there's no threat to my life. So we have to begin to recognize when there's real threat, perceived threat, and when we need to really shift perspective altogether. But again, it may come not right away. We may have to pay a little bit of attention to get to a point where we say, okay, I think I should change this in myself. So yeah, I don't know if it answered the question, but I think there's a lot of components to that. But naturally, again, spirituality, looking at the bigger picture when it comes to really rough experiences.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the you have to question. I did an entire episode on questioning what you think is true. So the way I try to, I'm very logical. I'm very left-brained.
Mhm.
And so I need evidence before I'm going to believe something. I'm a prove it to me kind of guy. And so I'm not religious in any way, shape, or form, which is interesting because I actually get invited to a lot of religious ceremonies from people who are religious and have important events that they would like me to attend. And I'm happy to, and I'm very respectful in those situations. I can absolutely respect someone else's beliefs and show deference and respect to those beliefs, even if I don't hold those same beliefs. If I know it's genuine, I'm good with it. I'm absolutely good with it. But from a factual perspective, the way I explain it is this: a fact is something that's true every single time, no matter what. And the
Mhm.
example I use is every molecule of water is made up of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom. That is true every single time, all the time, no matter what. And if it doesn't pass that test, it's a belief. And you have to question, is that belief true or is it not true? But I have accepted it as true and it's limiting my perspective on the world. That's the way
Mhm.
I try to think about it. And look, I live in a glass house, so I don't throw stones because I'm as imperfect as I'm way more imperfect than lots of people. I got my issues and my challenges as well. But I think I do a
Mhm.
better job than most people of trying to be brutally straightforward and honest, not only with others, but with myself as much as we're capable of. I'm, again, not perfect
Yeah.
in any way, shape, or form, but it's worked well for me. I rarely think of myself as a victim. My first
Mhm.
question to myself when something goes wrong is almost always, what could I have done different? Was there something I could have or should have done different that could have delivered a different result? Even if it's someone that just, let's say I wind up in the wrong place and I get robbed. Someone pulls out a gun and says, give me your wallet. My first
Mhm.
thought would be, hey, maybe I should have not gone down this street. Maybe I should have paid more attention to my surroundings. Maybe I should have left my wallet in the car. I always think about things I could have done differently to get a different outcome. And
Yeah.
that's what I try to encourage people to do because you talked about it earlier. Being a victim is one of the most useless mentalities that you can have. And I see so much of that in our society now. And my two questions around it are so what and what are you doing about it? So
Yeah.
let's just say, for example, I'm Irish, right? And the Irish in this country largely were brought over as indentured servants and were treated as third class citizens and blah 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 blah. So what? So what? It happened whatever 200 years ago. Do I care now? No, I
Mm.
don't. And if I did care now, what am I doing about it to change it? What am I doing that I have control over
Yeah.
to change it? So instead of allowing myself to be a victim, I try to be proactive and say, what can I do different? What can I control in this situation? And am I doing those things or am I feeling sorry for myself? And it's real easy to feel sorry for ourselves, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I wanted to mention when you said going to, I'm going to reverse a little bit back. When you mentioned that you've been called to different religious ceremonies, I can definitely understand why. You know why?
No, I don't.
Because you're spiritual, and spirituality is sensed, it's felt, it's noticed by different. It's not just the, with eyes, hearing, all of that. No, it's a very different thing. And they're not sensing into your restless mind, they're sensing into your energy. And being in a committed relationship for a while, treating everybody with respect, even if it differs from what you believe in, all of that is spirituality. It's spiritual principles, right? Respecting, taking care of your home, raising children, being a good citizen, being a good husband. All of those things play a part. People don't understand spirituality in that way. It's to have your morals and ethics, and people want you around. And Mother Teresa, she never didn't, she would enter a room full of people and people began to change in her presence. They didn't even see her, but the energy itself, we know energy is real, it's a fact. So we know energy does change a lot of things. And so it's felt and sensed, and people want to be next to you, not because of your religious beliefs, but because of who you are, how you treat them, how you treat yourself. All of that counts, and it's felt. And the second thing, I want to challenge your belief about you need facts to believe in something. And it's not for
Hmm.
me, it's actually a challenge from medical field, placebo effect. You believe it and then you see a difference, right? So it's not always about the fact sometimes. And that's where faith comes upon. And that's how spirituality works as well. We're not always having the answers right now. We have to trust without having guarantee sometimes for this process, for this life itself. I mean, when we're growing, and this is beautiful from one of the greatest teachers of my life, Dr. Wayne Dyer, and I've read all of his books. I've listened to multiple times to his audios. He passed on already in 2017, but he was influential person in the United States and in the world as well. So he always talked about when we're growing in our mother's womb, right, for 9 months. 9 months out of the year of a human, that's a long time. Sometimes we cannot get through a day, okay? 9 months is a long time. So nobody does anything. The mothers are not interfering with this process. We're not trying to create a liver inside. The doctor is not trying to, do something with us too. We trust something out there. And that's also that faith that, okay, I believe that it's going to be okay, that some energy that created it all will make sure I will have a nose, will make sure I will have ears, right? Not all of us are coming out perfect based on human standard. I think some people are different from others, but they're still beautiful and perfect in their own way because they're all created by this magnificent force, and they have a mission to carry with however they came out of this process. But then after we're born, after this 9 months, we come out and we say, "Oh, great job! I'm taking it over from here. I know better now." So the life itself made sure your liver is in the right place, but you think you know better about life from this point on. Sometimes we got to have that faith and trust in this energy that created it all, just like it created my intricate system inside that functions very well. I'm not sitting here trying to digest my food. I trust my breath that the next breath will be here for me, that my next heartbeat will be here for me. We have that trust. And medical field now, right, coming back to this placebo effect, which we know was discovered through trying different medications. Some people got the sugar pill, some people got the actual medication, but it was two controlled groups. And so those people who believed they were getting the medication that helped treat certain condition, they were getting better from a sugar pill. They didn't do anything. And I've heard even more so. I've heard experiences of surgeries on the knee when they were doing that. And certain people, they actually went and did what they had to do. And other ones, they just opened them up and they sewed them back in. So they had their knee like it was operated, but they didn't do anything inside. Both groups were healing, getting better, and they didn't even have a surgery. So there's so many things that we need to think about that sometimes we have to believe in it first for us to see the result. And again, thankfully, we have placebo effect that's been proven by medical field to be that miracle that we sometimes seek. So I think it's good to have, if we're thinking about human concepts, I think it's very important to have facts. That's why, again, in mental health field, we have evidence-based interventions that we know for a fact works for a lot of people. But also sometimes there's that component where we have to surrender and let go that grip, because sometimes we're fighting the wall thinking that, okay, I want this, I want this, I want this, without thinking, why do I want this? Because sometimes we get influenced by other people too, and we want it, but it's not meant to give us that fulfillment and meaning. And sometimes we have to let go and experience something else in order to find that next step of our development. And that's when that faith and trust comes in. And again, faith, I'm not using it in a religious sense. I think it's just believing that just like my kidneys, my organs showed out for me, I have that knowing that that life will continue to serve me in that exact way because it did that before. And the proof of it is right here. Look in the mirror. It took care of it all. We have it. We're good. And we gotta, it's a balance, right? It's never just one or another. I know some spiritual people who can't even pay taxes. And I know some really rich people who do not want to live anymore, right? So it's not about money. So we have to find this balance between the two and to be able to attune to that and take care of all of that and balance. I think it's all that we need. And in every day and our lives in general, balance is a good thing to have.
Got it. That's all well said. And just a couple of comments. One, it's very interesting the way you talked about spirituality after I spoke, because you sound very much like my wife. My wife says I'm the most spiritual person she knows. And she grew up, she was raised Catholic. And yeah, so I find that very interesting. It's very, and like there's nobody in the world that knows me better than my wife, obviously. But she's made that comment multiple times. She said I'm the most spiritual person that she knows, which kind of goes directly with what you just said. And
Mhm.
then two, totally get where you're coming from on we have to take some things on faith. Totally agree. It's absolutely a challenge of mine for sure.
Mhm.
That is absolutely something I struggle with. Like I am like I'll I'm not a big fan of government control in general, because I'm a student of history, and anytime there's been outsized government control, bad things happen. There, uh, and I'm speaking to someone who grew up in post Soviet Union Russia, so I know you know what I'm talking about here. But um, I just think people have to control their own destiny, because when you have a small group of people trying to make decisions for a larger group of people, they just can't get it right enough of the time for it to work, and just bad things happen in the name of The greater good. So
Yeah.
I use like licensing as an example, and the statement I use, which people, this is a factually true statement, and it really sets people off. Half of all doctors at any point in time are below average. They just are, because that's math, right? But that people like, they went to school and they learned all this stuff. I didn't say any of those things. I didn't say a single word that you just said back to me. What I said was mathematically correct. So if you take all of the cardiologists and ranked them, uh,
Mhm.
half of them are going to be below average because that's what an average is. It's the middle. That means half of them are
Mhm.
above and half of them are
Yeah.
below. And simply because someone is ordained by a group that is responsible for ordaining people, whether it's electricians, whether it's cardiologists, whether it's teachers, whether it's insert certification here, that
Mhm.
doesn't guarantee you that they're good at what they do. You just don't know. And I think you need to look at and judge people based on their approach. And like, as a for what it's worth, we've been talking for what, about an hour now. There's no way I'd hesitate for a second to recommend you to talk to someone about their mental health challenges because it's clear that you are deeply involved in the subject matter and care very much about helping people get to a better place. But that's not because you're licensed in the state of Florida. It's because you've done the work and you've got a background that you apply to those same things to help people. And I just encourage people a lot. You've got to open your eyes and look at the real situation. Not Don't get starstruck by degrees and by status and by
Yeah.
all of those things. And I think part of it for me too is I grew up, I was going to be a professional baseball player from the time I was 3 to the time I met my wife. That's what I was going to do. And so I wound up at a fairly high level in that sport. And so I knew a lot of guys that played Major League Baseball, and a lot of professional athletes and those kind of things. They're just as fucked as anyone else in certain circumstances. That they happen to be
Yeah.
good at throwing a ball real hard or jumping real high or whatever their athletic ability is that they've honed into becoming a professional athlete. But they got big problems just like anyone else
Yeah.
if you dig into their life.
Yeah.
So you can't get starstruck by those things. All of us are just trying to figure it out and what works for us.
Yes.
That's kind of the way I think about it. So pivoting from that, you've talked a lot about the connection and or the disconnection between mind and
Mhm.
body. Can you talk a little bit further about that, a little
Yes.
more detail about that topic?
So disconnection in the body. When we're talking about any experience, is just like a starting point. So anything we experience, whether we're watching a scary movie or we're falling in love or we're witnessing something scary, in good and bad experience, we're going to call them that simplistically, good and bad. We have the connection between we experience things mentally, so we have a certain reaction to it. Oh, that's scary. That face is scary. This was scary, but that fear is not just mental, it's physiological. So we experience fear by changes in our heart rate, by having different blood pressure, by having different, again, sensations like this. We have the knot in the stomach. We can have a lot of tension in the neck too. There's a lot of symptoms and things that begin to show up in our body when it's something scary. The same when it's something beautiful. When we're uplifted, we feel lighter, right? We feel butterflies in our stomach. We have goosebumps. There's also a lot of process. So connection, everything mental has physiological response. When we are experiencing trauma, and that's what kind of it gets tricky and why trauma is so hard to treat, especially in the past when it was, whether it was in vivo kind of exposure, when people were just talking about it or bringing themselves to re-experience the event, it also brought up those memories, but we're not addressing the physiology of it. So anything that we experience, good or bad, when we experience that, the neurons fire and wire together, creating a net, creating a connection. So if it's something scary, we're going to have this negative emotions, sensations, and a negative belief about yourself underneath that. For instance, example can be if we're watching a lot of scary news, right? We see, and a lot of people love those things. They love to say, "Oh my God, there was a shooting here. Oh my God, that happened. Oh, in this in China, in Vietnam," and they're always feel like they just collect all of the stuff. And so, how does it make them feel? Scared. And a lot of them are not going to take the steps forward to starting a new job or traveling or doing things that are so beautiful just because they already have it paired with some negative things from what they've learned. Everything we learn, we also record in our subconscious, so to say, and that makes an impact how we look at life as well. So this physiology that creates a connection, and we have mental too, right? The sometimes when we have very intense experiences, that can be suppressed. So we have explicit memories and implicit memories. Explicit, I can name or I can tell you the dates of what happened, what exactly happened, how people acted. Sometimes again, we lack certain memories as well as repressed memories. But then there's implicit memories, meaning how did I feel through that experience? Because again, I can talk about my traumas from being abused, but I'm not there to re-experience this right now already because I've reprocessed that. But sometimes when we look back, we begin to feel the same sensations. That's how trauma is a problem, is when we're bringing the consequence of it into the present moment. Because again, we all have traumatic experiences or stressful experiences that may potentially create trauma. It's going to depend on each person and how we're built, upbringing, sensitivities, vulnerabilities, all of those things. But again, it may not impact those people in a negative way. So some people can take it and right away themselves reprocess that naturally, while some people can have those consequences in here and now. So if I have someone, again, that survival mode will be here and now based on something that happened in the past, because in the room we're sitting together with, there's no threat, actual threat, but there is a perceived threat. Even being in front of someone can trigger that response, even though I'm not scary, but that may also resonate with them in a certain way that they may become certain word or a sound or a thing can trigger them. And when we're triggered, we're not triggered mentally, we're triggered physiologically. Our body remembers. And that's the trick, because we're trying to talk about it and make sense of it while our body is still keeping it the same as it was a decade ago. So becoming more aware of how certain experience affected us. And if I experience this consequence right now in this moment, that's the beginning stage two, to begin to understand how that trauma impacted me and what's going on internally. And when we're triggered again, this bottom part, we're going to call it simplistically the bottom brain and the top brain. The bottom brain, there is no logic and there's no connection to our conscious mind. So I can be thinking about one event all I want. And again, when I'm looking, let's say I'm looking at my childhood, I'm 35. I'm looking at my childhood, I'm saying, well, yeah, it was, we didn't live very well, and that was rough. Well, what I felt as a child, what I discovered in myself, it was complete sense of hopelessness. And imagine from 2 years old or 3 years old, if you experience just hopelessness in your life, you literally have nothing to look forward to. That's a very scary place for a child to be in. And that's nobody's fault. It's how I interpreted the experiences that were happening. Because at 2 years old, I don't have prefrontal cortex working yet, so I can't make sense of things as an adult.
Right.
And so when right, and when I'm triggered into that child, because there is freeze physiology. Something happened then that created this negative neural network with negative belief. It's hopeless. I'm hopeless. And so we're thinking back, and why was I different? That was my question for a long time. I feel things differently. I experience it differently. Why? Because I was not in my body at all. Because I was so dissociated from that time on, that I was not able to even live a life fully. And that was a big and rude awakening for me, to realize how long ago that problem was present in my life and what exactly it was. When we're dissociated, we don't know we're dissociated, we're just there. We're moving through life without being in the body. And so a lot of times also in trauma, the part of the brain called insula is also, it's our ability to be within the body and experience things. That also suffers and it changes. That's why we're not present in our body, because it needs to numb it down for us not to get triggered into this intense states of, again, hopelessness, fear, anxiety, and survival altogether. So this is the little bit of a difference. So we address both. We address the thoughts, because oftentimes the thoughts in cognitive behavioral therapy, that's another way as well. When thoughts create emotions and then behavior. So it's all connected. And thoughts are repetitive things. And most of us have the same thoughts every single day, because we watch the same thing, we get up and do the same routine in the morning, the same routine at night, and probably we're not really getting some important and good information for ourselves to change how we are, how we operate. So again, our daily routine and discipline, I know you spoke before a lot about, again, no victim state. You got to get up and get going. You have to do your best, right? That discipline, that drive, sometimes it's hard for certain people, but we absolutely have to practice that. Nobody's coming, but it's not tragedy, it's freedom. We have to learn that from this moment, we can do something about how we're being triggered and if we're being triggered, and understanding how our minds are working as well. So it's like an interplay of we're one entire system, but yet different parts can be so disconnected from one another. And it's such an empowering experience to be learning about ourselves. And I'm still learning. Every single day, I find more things that I need to work on. I'm like, oh my God, will this list ever end? I want to say I'm doing terrific, and I can never do so. It's like I never know anything, but it's beautiful because we're also not linear. Our development, when you talked about evolution, not revolution, you said, I think sometimes we need a revolution to get to evolution. And revolution can start from within when your body's like, I can't go on like this anymore. I'm done. Do you want to do something else? Go ahead. I'm not moving a bone from this bed. I'm staying here. I'm not doing anything anymore. So
Yeah,
yeah.
look, I totally agree with that. There are times, and a lot of this comes from my sports background. So, like in baseball, for example, I was a good hitter, but there were times that for whatever reason you'd struggle as a hitter. Like it just happens. Like I can't tell you why. But once I figured out what I thought was causing it, I would make what I called a violent overcorrection. So, for example, like if you're hitting and you just hold your hands here, if you let your back elbow drop, it can dip your shoulder and you can swing over the ball. So if I felt like that was happening, I would hold my elbow here, which is totally unnatural and it's not a good way to do it at all. However, it breaks this habit here, right? Because there's no way I can have my elbow down if I'm violently overcorrecting it up here.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there are times in our personal lives where we need to make some of those corrections. Like you had talked about, at one point in your life, you stopped and said, wait a minute, what is the one thing that's in common with all of these relationships? Oh, shit, it's me. Right. I had a similar moment around anger. So, I'm wired now. It's very easy for me to lose my temper. I have a very quick temper. And, if I do, it can be not good sometimes. There's times where I just like, hey, I don't care what the repercussions are. I'm going to take this out on the person that caused it, physically as well as mentally. And so I learned, hey, I that's not an effective way. And it was very early in our marriage. My wife and I, we bought a table, a dining room table and four chairs.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember I was so poor and I had no credit. I couldn't even buy it on layaway, or I couldn't even buy it on like those 90-day same as cash deals because I had no, they're like, get out of here, Joker. We're not giving you any credit at all. So I had to put it on layaway and pay for it over like a 3-month period that I brought this table and chairs home. And so I'm putting the table together and I'm underneath it and I'm tightening the legs on it. And I stand up and I hit my head on the bottom of the table. And so I stood up and I punched the table as hard as I could. And my wife was watching this from across the room and she kind of chuckled. And we hadn't been married for more than, it couldn't have even been a year at that point. Maybe it was a little over a year. Um, and she laughed and said, does your head feel better or does your hand just hurt now? And it's funny unless you
I
were me
love
at
it.
that point. And so I took a step towards her and I would never just let me unequivocally say, and I've told my wife this, I told her very early on, I said, if I ever one time laid a finger on you or any one of our kids, you should leave and never come back because anyone that would do it once would do it again. It's in there somewhere. I would not hurt you. However, I was pissed at this point. I took a step towards her and she looked at me and said, I don't like it when you're this way. It scares me. You scare me when you're this way.
Mm,
And that was like the proverbial slap in the face, like, oh, fuck, that's not something you want to hear coming out of your wife's mouth. That's bad. And that's 100%
mm,
on me. She, like, joking around, not joking around, whatever. Just saying words shouldn't put you at the threat of physical violence. And I would not hurt her, but she was scared. She was legitimately afraid at that point. And
mhm,
that was a real wake up call for me. Like, oh, this is not acceptable. It's my responsibility to deal with these outbursts, even though I feel them, even though they're real. It doesn't give me license just to
yeah.
abdicate my responsibility and let other people deal with the consequences. And so, again, I'm not perfect. I
Mhm,
live in a glass house. That's why I don't throw stones. Um, but I think it's important, like you've talked about several times, you got to kind of take an inventory and be honest with yourself and say, hey, I'm not doing a good job of this particular thing right now. I got to get better at it. How do I do that?
Yeah.
And I love that that's what you focus on with people in your practice. And so
Yeah.
you've referenced I think it was cognitive behavioral therapy,
Hmm.
and is it EMDR? Is that the other one? Do I have that right?
Yes.
Which one do
Yes.
you want to talk about first?
We can do either or. I want to mention the one thing that's very useful too to explain to people sometimes about emotions when we're struggling with certain emotions, and
Mm.
people can find all of it. I mean, obviously your spouse is very irritating and the neighbors are not very good people and the boss is probably an asshole. I'm sorry for my language. But again, we need to
You're on
think like
Salty
when
Ginger
people
Talk. Everything goes on Salty Ginger Talk. Say whatever you want.
well, not to my standard to myself, but sometimes there's no other words but to call it what it is because that's how
That's right.
people, view it sometimes. And so this is very, very interesting metaphor too from Dr. Wayne Dyer as well. Talks about if we take an orange and we squeeze an orange, what's going to come out of it?
Juice.
What kind of juice?
Orange juice.
Okay. Can I get a pineapple juice out of it if I squeeze really, really hard?
No.
Okay. What if I give it to your wife and she squeezes that at 4 a.m.?
I don't know. She's pretty magic. She might be able to do it, but I'm still going to say no.
Yes. Well,
I'm
that's the
still going with
correct
no
answer. That's the correct answer. Why? Why is the orange juice coming out of it?
because that's all it's made up of. That's all it's got.
Well, yeah, we know this thing, it has different names in different languages, but we know this fruit, right? This thing, and we know what's going to come out of it, right? And if we
Mm-hmm.
extend that when someone is squeezing you at 4 a.m., at 12 a.m., comes out what's inside. It's
Mm,
not instilled there by anybody else. Comes out what's inside that thing. How do you get there? That's our responsibility to find out. But it has nothing to do with anybody else. And I think it's an important part to start noticing that, again, we're coming for help. Let's say some people come for help. They're not, if it's someone else's fault, that I want to see them first. And I talk to them so that they change and you feel better. But it doesn't
mm,
work that way. We always work with the person that's in front of us, right? Because the problems are yours, not someone else. And however they got there again, whoever caused it, there is a solution out of it, or there's a solution to change how you interpret that or how you live with that. And that interpretation coming back to now getting to behavioral therapy. And that's beginning to understand how our thoughts are reflections of our beliefs underneath. And those beliefs, core beliefs, we all acquire them through childhood or some difficult experiences in adulthood, right? It's something that we're not born with, but that can be changed over time. Even unhealthy core beliefs are still there and impacting our lives because based on that core belief, that's what I'm going to think about all day long. So, for instance, an example of road rage and me, I think people should drive good, well, right? They have to be fair, you have to be respectful. That's my core belief. Life is not fair, though, right? We'll know that by now. Life is not fair, and people are not going to view life in the same way. But that belief is affecting how I perceive a situation when somebody cuts me off. I think based on that belief. So everything I do, how I interpret life, how I view life comes from what I believe about life first. And those are very deeply rooted from, again, oftentimes from childhood that get encoded. Now we know in physiology as well. Some of those things, like feeling unsafe, if you're coming from a family that wasn't very, good or that was abusive, you're probably going to feel I'm unsafe. That's probably going to be one of those things, or unlovable, or not good enough, or not important. And imagine if we are looking, so when that thing is created, that the physiological response, we're looking at the world through that. So if that's what I believe about me, how do I do life? How do I live? How do I function? How do I make new connections when I think I'm unsafe and I'm unlovable? That's how we get in those troubles with, again, unhealthy relationships, substance use, because we can't just cope with what we're feeling, what we experience. And those feelings comes from what we think about, how we interpret life. If someone in my, again, in my example, when I was when that breakup happened with the abusive person, I did not want to live my life anymore. For me, life was over. It was the greatest blessing of my life that this guy just left, like,
right.
right? But the belief was different and my thoughts about it were based on that belief. So all of these things play a part, and then again we have those emotions and we have the behaviors. The question is, how willing are we to challenge those beliefs? Because that's going to be very uncomfortable for a lot of people to change that. And we know that in a lot of ways, when people don't practice self-love, a lot of people don't love themselves. And that's an awful thing. Maybe because the core belief is self-love is selfish. Not at all. Not at all. That's why on a plane, when we're flying in a plane, the masks, if something happens, the mothers or the parents have to put the mask on themselves first and then on the kid. But a lot of people will say, of course, I will put it on the kid. You're no good to your kid if you're dead.
Mm.
So we gotta love ourselves enough to provide for ourselves what we need so that we can be available to those people we so passionately love in our lives. It's a requirement, it's a must. You're not able to be as available and as good to those people you love if you don't care for yourself. If you're underslept, if you didn't eat, if you feel pain, you have to, it's your responsibility to take care of those needs or to begin to take care of those needs. And that comes from a very natural and beautiful and deeply rooted sense of self-love. It's not selfish. It's the most loving thing you can do to those you love is to love yourself. And that's the only way. And so beginning to challenge that and change a lot of thoughts, there will be a lot of different thoughts as well about us not, that feels uncomfortable. Yeah. Saying nice comments to yourself will be very uncomfortable when you never loved yourself, but it's going to bring so much freedom to you as well and so much beauty. And it's going to feel good. And so that's the cognitive behavioral therapy. And anytime I begin to be aware of my thoughts, then I can change them. But again, it requires a lot of awareness. It requires a lot of time. We have to be able to really make it our intention every day and say, I'm going to be very intentional what I think about. And guess what? If you give yourself a task, let me focus on this one mantra. I'm just going to sit here and be saying one thing, but I'm focusing on that too. I'm not just saying it. I have to feel it, right? I have to experience it, whatever. Maybe it's a positive affirmation. And then notice how soon you're going to be thinking about something else already, because the mind is like a wild horse, it's jumping everywhere. You can't use that wild horse for yourself. It's a beautiful horse, has a lot of power. You can use it to help yourself with garden, you have with crops or whatever, but it's not good to you if it's wild. You have to domesticate it. And that's what you do with your mind, with your ego. We have to learn to domesticate ourselves and all these things that are jumping and say, no, 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 I'm not thinking that anymore. And I'm replacing that with another thought consistently every single day. And anytime I'm able to replace that, I create new neural plasticity in my brain. I begin to form different connections in my brain and in my body as well that promote this healthier way of looking at things. And the more we focus on that, the more it expands. The more we practice that, the better it gets. I wasn't a good driver when I started driving. Now I'm much better. So are all of the skills we have to learn. We're not good at them at first. But just like the muscles, we're not going to the gym once a year and say, oh my God, I'm the hot person now until the rest of the year. We have to continue, right? Going there. And the same happens with our mind. Our mind is a muscle. We have to use it for that to work for us. We have to use it in a way that it's going to benefit me. It either can heal me or kill me. Which one do you choose? Because right now your mind may be killing you, but it doesn't have to, because everything you think, you've learned. It's not something you're born with. And if there is other ways to think about the same thing, why not try that? Let's try. Practice that, but it comes again. You can't just try once, say, oh, it doesn't work. People try meditation, they're like, it doesn't work. It works if you work it. If you get some good time with it,
Right.
it's gonna work. There's no way. It's been proven by monks who've been tested with different machines how in split second they can go into this complete peaceful space in their brain waves, in their presence. So yeah, it's possible. If one person can do it, so can you. But would you be willing to do it? And sometimes we have to ask ourselves questions, not like, am I willing to do it? But what was I unwilling to do? Well, I didn't want to meditate early in the morning, or I didn't want to do it after work, and I didn't want to relocate, and I didn't want to, there's a lot of those things that we didn't want to do. So here's the result. And every step we take is going to be that. So that's cognitive behavioral therapy in a nutshell.
Nice. One of my favorite sayings to illustrate what you said there at the end is, what are you willing to do the work? People always say, like if someone's overweight, they'll say, I'd do anything to lose weight. And I always say, except diet and exercise, right? Because like that's it. That's the only two things you have to
Yeah.
do. And it's a lot easier to say it than to do it. And like I get that. I'm not judging anyone, but that's the truth.
Mhm.
If you consume less calories than you burn, you'll lose weight. Period.
Yeah.
That's a fact. It's scientifically proven. It's very
Yeah.
straightforward. But you're not willing to do it. And that's, I saw that a lot when I was playing sports, people would say, "Oh, you're so lucky," and I'm like, "There's a certain amount of luck that was involved in it that's largely genetic. So I was lucky that I was born into an athletic body and I didn't have any birth defects. And even when I'm in great shape, and I'm not in great shape right now, but even when I'm in great shape, I'm 6'3" and I'm about 210 pounds. That's me in really good shape. So I'm a big, strong guy, always have been. And that is where the luck ended because I busted my ass for 2 decades to put myself in a position to be able to play professional baseball. So when my friends were out at the beach chasing girls in the summer, I was running stadium stairs. And when they were out screwing around on a Friday night, I was lifting weights. I
Ah,
did all my homework and got good grades so that I could go to any college I wanted because I could get into any college I
yeah,
wanted. None of that was luck. None of that was luck. That was me
yeah,
being willing to pay the price that it took to
yeah.
get the result that I wanted. And there were other instances where I wasn't willing to pay the price to get results that I said I wanted, but I didn't act like I wanted. And there's a big difference between saying you want something and actually
Yes.
wanting something. Like my relationship with my wife is a good example. So, I tell people all the time, you will never ever hear about me being in a like some type of compromising situation where people are like, oh, we saw Joe with a girl or that. No, it'll never happen because I just refuse to put myself in those situations because I respect my wife too much. Like her uh, respect of me and her my value in our relationship
Hmm.
far more important than any of that other stuff. I don't care. I don't go out with other people.
Hmm.
If I'm not working, I'm at home, and that's not a sacrifice. I don't think, God, I wish I could be out drinking with my buddies, but I gotta go home and spend some time with my wife again. Like I want to do it. That's what's important to me. And so
Yeah.
people that say they want to be in these kind of relationships, but don't act like they want to be in these kinds of relationships, I personally don't have sympathy for at all. And look,
Yeah.
my standard saying is you will find sympathy in the dictionary between shit and syphilis. You won't find it here. Um, but empathy, I think, is very important. And, trying to understand what drives people's behaviors. And this might sound funny to you, because I am not trained in any way, shape, or form. However, I did take a couple psychology classes way back in the day, and one of the things that resonated with me was Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that
Yes.
made such sense to me as a way to kind of look at life. And I'm a good negotiator. And I think one of the reasons I'm a good negotiator is because I try to understand what the other group is thinking. What is important to them? What
Hmm.
are they coming from? So that I can come up with solutions for the problems that they have. And I think that's why I'm successful a lot. But
Hmm.
when you talk about the most basic things, and you've talked about it a couple times without calling it Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but you've
Hmm.
already referenced it a couple times in this conversation. So the it's a pyramid that's big at the bottom
Yes.
and it gets smaller and smaller as you go up. And the stuff at the bottom is the most basic things in life. We're talking about air, we're talking
Yeah.
about water, we're talking about physical safety. Um, and if someone doesn't have, like Alisa said earlier, if someone's sitting next to a lion, they don't give a shit what book you're reading. They don't give a shit who you're voting for in the next presidential election. They're worried about this lion eating them. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that are kind of at that fearful existence level, and people are expecting way more out of them than they're capable of at that point in their life. And the other
Hmm.
thing I liked about that resonated with me was that you throughout your life can move up and down Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So you might be all
Yeah.
the way at top in self-actualization, and then your marriage breaks up and you lose your job and your house burns down, and all of a sudden you start sliding down because all the things that were for certain are no longer, and you're back at this level trying to survive, right?
Yes, absolutely. Basic needs are everything. I think a lot of ways in which we have this cognitive distortions or, erroneous thinking in a way is that we make a want a need. And when a want becomes a need, we have a problem. Because if I say, I need validation from others, or I
Mm,
need this car, you don't need that. You want that, and that's great to want. But when you make it a need, you can't live without. And those basic needs we're talking about, like air, water, food. Sometimes we need to humble ourselves too. And I think sometimes we jump over what we're capable of right now, and we want something that's not there at that level just yet. And that's a very, to me, it can be humbling experience, because acknowledging, you know what, I have everything I may need right now, and that's great, and I can be grateful for that already, rather than spiraling into this space. Well, they have this, I need this too to be happy, or I need this, or I need that. And so I think understanding also the difference between want and a need can give a lot of clarity on your life as well, and where you are. And I really love, actually, Wayne Dyer. He knew Maslow. They worked together, and he said when he passed
Really?
on, yeah, yeah, it's an old folks. I love the older generation. Right now, some of the people from this time on, it's a little bit weird. Of I don't see unicorns and rainbows everywhere I go. And like comes to spirituality, and I think a lot of things are really exaggerated when there's no need. A lot of things are, I think simplicity is the key in a lot of ways. And I think we're making it so much more complicated now because people just need to create problems to solve. That's what our evolution is about, right? We evolve through solving problems. However, when we have everything we may need, we begin to create more problems to solve, because that's how we evolve. And sometimes we create those problems out of, like you were saying, I'm going to look at this or what's happening. I'm going to sit there and complain about it without taking any action. So how are you growing through this experience? How are you enriching yourself through watching that? Is it making your life better or not? And sometimes, again, we just find ourselves in the states, right? The tendencies that we have where we get stuck. But yes, basic needs are absolutely essential. And I think everybody should understand their own level, and maybe even get introduced to that hierarchy of needs, to that pyramid as well. And I also loved how Maslow actually described self-actualized people. It's a very, very profound way of looking at that. Self-actualized people are independent of the good opinions of others, because oftentimes, and when we don't have this good self-esteem, we may thrive only on someone else's validation of ourselves. And the idea is to become so self-sufficient. But for that, again, you need to know yourself, and you have to have everything in order as far as your own tendencies, knowing your shadow, your darkness, and knowing your strengths. And these are two very important things, because everything we work on, any tendencies we used to have in the past, when we heal that, when we work through that, let's say sobriety, right? People getting sober, people working on certain emotional outbursts, right? Whatever that is, doesn't matter what that is. It's not going anywhere far. Yes, it's not active right now, but it's been encoded in you for so long that it's
Mm.
always going to be in your shadow. And since we're in these bodies, no matter where I look, anywhere, I'm going to have a shadow behind me. So those tendencies will always remain in that shadow. And we have to be always hyper vigilant of whether they're resurfacing or not, because it's very easy to get sidetracked. It's so natural for us in the past that now it begins to be, again, we can slide to that side. And so becoming very aware and learning to know yourself, because a lot of people say, well, I know myself. No, you don't. No, you don't. And your mind is tricking you every single day. And the fact that you're thinking you do, that's literally it right now. It's already another lie. We don't know ourselves as much as we wish or as much as we imagine. And so it's a constant evolution. It's a constant progress, constant questioning, constant assessment, but also balancing out with looking at our strengths and acknowledging ourselves. And that's, again, coming to that balance. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because like I'm a really good salesperson, which is problematic because I'm a good salesperson to myself as well. So I can get myself to believe a lot of my own bullshit and like kind of mask where my challenges are and what I need to work on. I can rationalize to myself very, very well, which can be problematic, you know? Like it's not a good
Yeah.
place to be able to fool yourself and ignore things you need to get better at. And
Yeah.
it's unfortunately it's easy for me to do.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna tell you a funny story. So back in the day, I have two, but I'm gonna focus on one specific one here. I've been a vegetarian for 7.5 years now, went back on it for health purposes. But back in the day when I was taking just like a Lent or a fast, right, I wouldn't eat meat, and I really wanted meat. Like that was something that I loved. And I went on, I think it was over a year that I've been vegan in the past. And every night I would have carrots with some sauce, like Thousand Island or ranch or whatever. And so one day I'm eating the carrots as usual. Me and my dog, one of my dogs back in the day ate that too when I was studying. Actually, it's funny when you mentioned that you were studying and doing the stuff. Yeah, when everybody were partying, I was studying. That's why I am where I am. It's very simple. There's no luck in there. It's blood, sweat, and tears, so to say. But I'm
Mm.
eating these carrots, and I want more carrots. I'm eating again. I want more carrots. And I'm refilling. That's not normal. I'm like, that's very weird what's going on. So I went in the kitchen and I take that sauce, and that sauce had bacon in it. My mind enjoyed that so much that it just tricking me into me wanting carrots. But what I wanted was far from the carrot. It was the meat that I was lacking and missing so much. That's how our mind can drive our life unconsciously, and we're just flowing through it rather than taking a stance where you choose what you do next. We just allow ourselves to think about whatever comes, and when we think about whatever comes, we begin to feel that. That becomes a trap. We're literally living in traps. So again, it's taking that action, and really every step of the way, it becomes intentional. And like you've said, not everybody is kind of going through that. So again, I always talk about the 3 stages. First is awareness, self-awareness. What's going on with you? You have to learn about that. Then you make a decision. If it's serving you, great, continue. If it doesn't serve you, what do you want to do about it? Because now you know better, but if you don't do better, sometimes life brings us to do better when we're reluctant to do so. So the second stage is willingness to say, you know what, I want to work on this. I want to change that. I don't like it. Now I'm aware. Now every time I do it, I have this scratch, right? This itch in my head that I know it's not right because I know it now. I cannot lie to myself. I know it's not good for me. So what am I doing? Okay, I want to change it. That's willingness. And number three is being ready to change, because things will get extremely uncomfortable. And you have to be okay to walk through that fire, to face it all, and to rise on the other side. And what do you tell yourself through that period is extremely important, because you can say, oh, it's hard. Oh, it's going to take a long time. All of these excuses that we make for ourselves, that is complete BS. And if we take it as such and say, people do that all the time, and I can do too, even though it may be hard, and it will be hard. Great. I'm going to grow so much through this self-discipline because it's going to be hard. Whenever I look back and say, I was so happy, I grew so much. Who said that? Oh, I was enjoying vacation. I grew so much. I evolved so much through that. I ate, a lot. I drank. No, we don't say that, but we say, oh my God, that was some terrible, terrible month for me. Oh my God, I've learned so much about myself and how strong I was and how to navigate. I didn't think I'm going to see the end of this process. We grow through that. So again, this challenge is there for your sake. It's there for you to grow through it and to become that evolved version of yourself. But we have to, again, negotiate in our mind. You have to take the steering wheel. You cannot allow your unconscious self to be driving this car. You have to take that steering wheel, and you have to say, anytime you have and that's also actually, it's a clinical intervention, thought stopping exercise. The moment you realize, you become aware, again, it may take some time to become aware of this thoughts that we have. Once you're there, you say, oh my God, I'm thinking about it again. Stop. Just say it out loud. When I was practicing that 13 years ago, when I've learned about it and I was practicing it, I had to say it to myself out loud. People would be looking at me sometimes because I say it in public, because I was so trapped by my mind. I needed the actual stop. And people were like, I'm like, not for you guys. Sorry. It's nothing to do with you. It's all good. And then you choose what you think about, and you put a mantra, a prayer, a motivational thing. Maybe you listen to something that's going to give you a new perspective too. So we have to be very disciplined in this process of navigating the mind, because mind can be very tricky.
Yeah, our minds are so powerful, and to your point, like you can succumb to that power and let it run you, or you can harness that power and use it to do exactly what you're trying to do. Um, but that's a choice. Those are both choices. You can choose which way you go with that. I've learned that much over the years. By the way, one of us is clinically trained and one of us is not. So if we disagree, you know who you should listen to, right? It's not me. So keep that in mind, guys, as we're going through this. But let's talk about EMDR now. I'm very interested in EMDR.
Oh, my favorite. I love it so much. I cannot even, express my gratitude for this to be in the field that we know right now. So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So basically, when we spoke about this physiology, keeping the score of our traumas, right? What we're trying to do, how did it get there? How did it get encoded mentally? And a lot of times we have those repressed, whether it's emotions repressed from the experience, maybe some memories as well, like explicit memories. I don't remember parts of the experience. When we go to bed, what's happening? Let's say if we are very young, if it's a girl or a boy, 3 years old, 4 years old, when something that they witness that is so severe, so intense, When we go to bed and we get into the REM sleep, right? It's a deep state of sleep where our eyes are moving very fast. It's literally our hippocampus responsible for memory is sorting out information from the day. It's putting it in different compartments so that we can use it for the future. But when we get such an intense experience, and again, at that young age, or even at older age, but when it's something really intense, our brain is just too much to handle. It's too much emotionally, it's too much mentally and physically too, because that state of fear, again, people can go gray with their hair overnight from stress, right? We know it. So how we respond to life may change our epigenetics, so to say. We change physiologically from experiences that we have. And so when we go to bed and our eyes begin to move, and if it's something too intense, hippocampus is repressing that. That's exactly why the information is out of our conscious, out of the top brain. We don't have a connection to our bottom brain from the top brain. When we do EMDR, we work on creating target sequence plan first. So let's say if people come with a problem in this present moment, we begin to look at it and assess that situation from the present. Sometimes they come in and say, well, yeah, I have certain struggles here, but I've had really bad experience when I was a child or when I was a teenager. We may stop at the bottom, right? Sometimes it's top bottom from the now to back to the past. Sometimes it's from the past to this point on. And what we begin to try to understand is how that connection was formed. So we're questioning the person to give us an example, or not example, to give us a description of what did that experience or that situation meant for them. What did they feel? What emotions did they feel when that happened? What were the sensations in the body? When you're talking now about it, what do you feel in your body? Because oftentimes the trauma will have its tentacles still in this present moment. So when we talk about trauma or something that was intense, people may start crying, they start feeling tense, they can get red, right? Because they're reliving the same experience over and over, and it's so solidified internally that it's hard to shake off. Once we establish that, we begin to understand what negative belief was underneath that. And once we identify that, which can get, again, tricky, especially for a lot of people who are very rational, because they're already mentally, they solved it, even though it's not solved. I always talk about it as if we have a wound, if I have a scratch, like big scar, I've had a bad injury and it healed on top. And I have actually older folks that I personally know in my personal space when I was talking about it. And the lady said, like, well, I'm not going to be, it's been so long ago, I don't care. It doesn't bother me. But yeah, you're calling 911 because you have a panic attack every single month. So they don't attribute that to the experiences in the past. So when that wound begins to heal and we have a scar on top, but we didn't treat the infection. So I'm looking on top on my hand, I'm looking at the scar and I say, it's healed. I'm not gonna open this. This is done. Like it's been here forever. It's done. But you continuously have nausea, fever, you have problems with your health because the infection is still there. The only way to solve that is to reopen this and to make sure to clean that infection out, to take care of it, and then to patch it back up again so it heals properly. So what we're doing with the eye movements, right? So eye movement is sensation reprocessing with EMDR. Once we identified the aspects and the layers of that trauma internally, sensations, emotions, and belief, and found other experience that reaffirm the same negative neural network, the same negative belief, we begin with one experience after another. And what we do, the person is focusing on the feelings, sensations, and that belief that we identified. And we begin to stimulate the hippocampus by moving the eyes or using bilateral stimulation. They have light, they have sounds, as long as it's stimulating the both parts of the brain. And once that happens, our brain begins to reopen that wound, reopen these suppressed emotions, this experience. And yes, it can get very intense in the beginning because it's there. It's just been there forever. So now when we feel it in this present moment, when it's opening up, it can be intense for a lot of people. But then it begins to slowly to dissipate, to get out of our system, mentally and physically. And people experience it differently. It's not just a mental. You get new insights on the same situation, but you also get a very different experience. For me, was I've done intensive for myself last year for 3 months. And it was like unlocking of, it's like feeling like your body was holding so much tension. Now it's unlocking. It's like becoming alive and you feel very differently. And on top of that, instead of this negative belief, which we also work through the target sequence plan, we instill the positive belief. What do you want to believe about yourself instead? And that has to be on the other side of this coin. So one side is, again, that negative. Let's say I'm unlovable. On the other side, I deserve love regardless. And so we begin to instill that part, right, underneath that. And so people have not only desensitizing the negative, but also feeling better from the positive. And it's a incredible experience. Sometimes it may take longer depending on the traumatic experience, depending where that was and when that was. I work with some folks who are older and they had traumas from 9 years old, right? And they're in their 60s per se. So it may take 3 or 4 sessions for them to desensitize that negative experience. But again, nonetheless, it creates such a change in their life, and it creates this emotional distance because there's no longer that connection inside. There's nothing to trigger. So even if you experience trigger or memory comes on, you don't feel as emotional about it. You feel like you're watching it from a distance and it's not affecting you in this moment because it's no longer in you. It's a beautiful, anybody who is interested in working, doesn't have to be trauma specifically. But again, what do we call trauma? It's not only things that cause us life or death situation. I think trauma also is feeling unlovable and feeling unsafe in general. If we live a life of feeling not good enough, how you can live to the full potential if you think that way about yourself. So if anybody wants to work on those things that have been stuck for so long, EMDR can be a great tool to work on that trauma.
And you went through EMDR both as I don't know if patient is the right word, but as a participant, and now
Yeah.
you're trained in EMDR techniques. Is that right?
It was the other way, but yes, first I got trained in there, and then during the training, I was the first one to give my feedback back and
Ah,
coming back because we were processing. I was like, I was the first one to say, I can't believe it works. Like, I feel so good. I'm like, what is this? This is incredible. It changed everything. How I view therapy, how I view trauma, how I view the human in general, how we're built, right? It changed everything for me, how I experienced myself. And after I figured what treasure that is, I went for therapy myself to work on that. And sometimes if I share that with some of my clients, that, yeah, you know what, I'm going for MDR, like, you're going. I'm like, yeah, I practice what I preach. What I preach is that if you have a problem, you go and ask for that. I have a problem I wanted to work on. I went and I did it for me. And that was a beautiful experience. It helped me a lot in processing my childhood. And that happened at 34. So now imagine people are walking around in 60s, 70s, and they're carrying around this box of the past that's been impacting them since then. And so it can be so liberating to be working on those things that were keeping us trapped in that prison. And now we're free. And it's incredible. It's just, you can't describe that in words because you have to experience that. Words limited. If you feel it when we have a knowledge, I can say certain things, facts, and all of that, and we have a knowing, right? And let's say if we talk about spirituality, knowing is something I experience. I don't have to prove it to you. I know it. I know it by heart. And even if you disagree, I will smile and say, okay, that's everybody has their own truth. I'm fine with yours, but I have mine. You're not changing my experience. If I'm not changing you, that's fine too with me. I don't need to because I love how I feel with what I know. How do you feel if you have to fight me on this? I don't have to prove you nothing. And knowledge, that's where we have to fight and prove. That's where we have a proof. And then knowing, we don't need a proof. We know it. You don't have to believe in something when you know it by heart.
yeah. Um, how do you identify? So maybe I want to make sure I'm thinking about this the right way.
Mhm.
How do you identify the issues you work on with EMDR, or do you just go through the exercises and they present themselves through the exercises?
Well, usually people know what they're struggling with. Again, if
Gotcha.
it's, oh, I'm having a panic attack. I've had a panic attack on the kitchen with my husband, and or I had what can be an example? Let me think real quick. I had an outburst at work. I could not hold myself back because that coworker was so irritating, and I got fired from that. So anything that was very emotional or intense, usually there is something that's trapped that we can look at. I mean, again, our emotions are teaching us something is not working well inside. Our emotions are a great way for us to become aware, especially if those emotions are holding us hostage for a while. If it's a repeated pattern, there's definitely a problem, or something really big that you just can't cope with. Naturally, again, usually in many cases, people will come with some serious traumatic experiences. And so they usually know they're really not holding themselves together. And we're not starting with EMDR right away. There are 8 phases to EMDR, and then we have to go through each of them to really dig deeper and to understand. Because again, if you're thrown into a memory when you were 2 years old, and that's what comes out. Because again, even when we talk about dissociative identity disorder, oftentimes that's that trapped physiology from that experience. That's why you have a 2-year-old girl. That's why you have a 14-year-old teenager, right, in you. So you have these different things of where usually the trauma happened. And so when we're triggered, comes out, and some people, it's again that dissociation that's very intense, but comes out that part of you that was stuck there. And actually, it's fascinating how you can reconnect with the younger version of yourself through EMDR, because it's still in you. Whatever you've experienced is still in you. And it's crazy. It sounds so weird, but it's also even more weird to experience that. And when I reconnect, I've never been a big person for myself on the working with your inner child.
Mm.
But when I met her at 2 years old through EMDR, I was bawling like a baby. It was such a beautiful, profound experience, and crazy too. I was like, again, I'm a very rational person when it comes to experience I can't explain. So if there's really something, I'm like, wow, that's a miracle. That's really weird. Like I can't explain that, because I can't explain a lot of things. When people say, well, is that, no, that's the window open, or this, no, that's the AC. It's not moving because there's a ghost. It's moving because there's wind, right? So this kind of moment. So for me, again, I have to explain. And when I've met that inside of me, I've met that girl. It was a crazy experience. I can't explain that. When I talk about it, I sound to myself, I sound a little weird, but it was a literal meeting of that with that physiology, because we have it all inside. It's still there. It's not going anywhere.
It might not be the people you think that you should be around or the people you want to be around, but they're the people that you need to be around, you
Yeah.
know? That's the way I've always thought about it. And I was fortunate. This is my crude way of saying it. I was born without the give a fuck gene. Like I don't give a fuck what a lot of people think about me. And I never have. It's gotten more exacerbated as I've gotten older. Even as a kid, like it wasn't that I didn't understand peer pressure. It wasn't that I didn't not want people to like me or think I was cool or be popular or any of those things, but I wasn't going to change who I was to make those things happen. It was either good enough for people or it wasn't good enough for people. And I was okay. And I'm still okay with both of those
Mhm.
things. That's fine. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And the list of people that doesn't care for me is just as long and illustrious as the people that do care for me. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. That's fine, you know?
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I think you said the right thing too, and that's again that distinction between a want and a need, right? I can enjoy attention. I love attention. I love to get compliments, but I don't need it
Yeah.
to know who I am. And I think that's a very important thing, that when we say, oh, I need this, we haven't met that need for ourselves. And that's, again, unfortunately, not everybody has families who are teaching them that. But again, as kids, if nobody's teaching me how to ride a bike, when I see a bike, I'm not going to be able to ride it because I don't know how. The same comes for needs to feel loved, validated, cared for. If I haven't had that as a child, I will have to learn it myself. And that's going to be a hard journey, because the first person who will come and serve me with that need, serve me on top of that, validate me or tell me they love me, and suddenly I'm like, oh my God, I feel so great. I've never felt that before. I need this person in my life because I don't know how to do it for myself. And we get in the trap because probably the first one who comes close to us is not the best. Life shows us that, right? When we go to the
Mm,
store hungry, if I'm going hungry to the store, what do I buy? The first thing I see, the chips, the fast food, whatever. But if I come and I'm full, I'm like, okay, what do I need to buy for the week? Okay, I have to cook this. I can make a salad. I can, make rice. We have this different way of looking at it. The same comes for relationships, for other things. Or wherever I go hungry, I'll probably settle for whatever is available rather than keeping myself accountable for that and say, you know what, this is not it. I'm sorry. The exit is right there. Thank you very much. But again, it's such an intricate, there's so many layers to us, as humans. So yeah.
yeah, for sure. Your sessions with people, do you do these in person? Do you do them online? How does it work with you?
It's both actually. So in person, I'm working right now in a place called Caring Therapist. It's a beautiful practice. We have a lot of practitioners too, beautiful people, and again, very skillful and skilled. So it's twice in the office and 3 times in telehealth as well, which is convenient because I'm in my home office as well. So yeah, you can do the same things in the office and we have different programs that help us too. We can send the link to the client and they're able to do the eye movement. Tapping I usually do with them together. I get desensitized too, so it's fun. Actually get better and more, stabilized too through it. So yeah, it can be both. And I love both equally. I love people online because I'm more comfortable, but in person we have this more of a presence in the office. So it's nice.
Sure. And so I know you said you're licensed in Florida, but does it matter like if someone in Wisconsin or Idaho or New Mexico was watching the show, could you still work with them?
What I can do outside of that, by license, I'm not able to be a therapist for them. However, I do life coaching as well. That may not include some of the techniques, but still, I connect with everybody. And I'm actually working on the course for trauma as well. So it's going to be more accessible. I do want to reach more people, at least to provide what I know, what helped me, and what I've learned to make it again for a broader audience. But I can definitely do a free consultation. If anybody needs a suggestion, a talk, I can definitely arrange a free consultation. I can just provide certain resources, what to look into, maybe listen to what kind of problems they have, and recommend something or someone. Maybe I have a connection in that state if they're there, if I know the person. So yeah, for sure. Anyway, I'm very open to people. I'm here of service. I have one of my tattoos have consecrated to God on it. I'm here to serve other people because my source was very generous to me in many ways through struggles and through beauty, so to say. So again, I want to provide as much as I possibly can, and I love to be of service.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And just for all the listeners, we will, so Elisa will provide us links to all of her contact information, whether it's life
Mhm.
coaching, whether it's the course, hopefully, even if it's not done or available before we publish your episode, by all means, get us the information once it is available. We'll add it to the show notes. But my point is, we'll put any way that any
Yeah.
options available to work with Alisa in the show notes, so you don't have to go far to find her and connect with her. Plus, like, who wouldn't love having a conversation with her? Look how what a positive energy she brings, and how knowledgeable she is about this stuff. I've immensely enjoyed. I was our conversation. I was right to be excited about it, so I'm really glad we got the chance to connect. But before I let you go, you're not off the hook yet. One of the things I always do, I feel like I ask good questions. I feel like we cover a lot of territory when we have guests on because I want our listeners to get the maximum value out of the people that we bring on, which is why our conversations take so long. It's because we find such awesome people and they have such awesome things to talk about. It takes a while to get through all that. And we don't want to try to cram it into a half hour or an hour. So we just talk until we're done talking and then we call it good. But is there anything I haven't asked you that you feel is important that you want to make sure the listeners hear? Or is there any subject that we have not covered or subjects that we have not covered yet that you feel are important to talk about while we're here in front of the listeners?
I think we've covered a lot of things that are useful. And I think people, if they will be open to it, they will be able to learn something from it. Or again, maybe again, slight shift in perspective can be great. The only one advice I would give to others is just to be honest with yourself and to learn about yourself, to really, really learn your, every tendency you have, your shadow, your light, your skills, your strengths, your challenges. To be honest with yourself, again, it's not putting you down. And that's one of the major kind of struggles for me when we're working on creating that target sequence plan and we're going over trying to figure out what's the negative belief. And it's like, okay, what did you feel? We're trying to get there. But again, things like that you're a failure, that you're unlovable, it sounds so harsh. And I so don't like bringing that on as examples, like what that can look like and feel, just because the fact that you may experience that doesn't define who you are. Is just one thing that you need to work on in order to get to this next 2.0 version of yourself. So just again, getting honest with yourself first, and again, learning about yourself. I think these are the first steps.
Got it. That's awesome. The only thing I'll add to that is just remember, guys, we talked about this earlier. Elisa's looking to give people the tools to go out and build the life that they want. She's not looking for people who just keep coming to her for 10 years. I'm not saying she wouldn't help you if it took 10 years, but my point is it's practical, real world help that you can take and incorporate in your life and build what you want. So if you're looking for help that will enable you to do these things on your own, change your thought processes, change the way you look at the world so you can take different actions and build the life that you're looking to build. She's your gal. So make sure you check her out. Make sure you reach out to her, because I can tell you right now, you can do a lot worse than working with her to help you get to a better spot. So, Alisa, really appreciate you coming on. Would love to stay in touch. Maybe after your course comes out, we could have another conversation and kind of talk about the course and what you're trying to accomplish with that, and just revisit everything. I loved our conversation. Really, really appreciate you coming on and taking the time with us tonight.
Thank you for your kindness and the space. I loved it too. It was amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. So until next time, have a great week. Alisa, great, like just great job. I just can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming
Thank
on.
you. You're so kind.
I just, it's always humbling to me when people are so willing to talk about tough things that they've gone through and kind of allow our listeners to understand, hey, you're not the only one going through stuff. You can make it get better, but you're the one that has to make it get better. And I
Yes.
thought you did that in such an effective and kind of welcoming way. So just really,
Mhm.
really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. You're so kind. Yeah, it's an honor and a pleasure. Actually, it was a very rough right now in general. Like we spoke about the Mercury, it's a rough moment for me too, and in certain ways that I'm going through. So I haven't slept well. Yesterday I forgot to eat. So the whole thing was just a mess. And I was like, how I'm gonna get through it. And that's I think in my way, how I view it, if from a conversation you actually come out better, that was a very beautiful kind of collaboration that creates this momentum and creates more energy that we can thrive on as humans. And that's again from human interaction. So I appreciate, your guidance in this too, and that space and your knowledge and your wisdom. So it's an honor to be on your show.
Well, thank you so much. We'll do it again. We'll do it again somewhere down the road. When you, like I said, uh, if even if your course isn't ready by the time we publish your episode, please make sure you get me the information so we can add it to the show
Mm.
notes, and then we can talk then about grabbing another session and doing another
Yeah.
podcast. I'd love to do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a book is coming out, something that I was writing from 2016 to 2025. So actually, my whole journey, but it's insights of spiritual. It's called Walking with Spirit. So it's spirituality and again mind and tendencies and all of this human aspects and how to find spirituality afterwards and combine all of that. So it's coming out soon. We're in the final stages before we launch that. So I'm gonna definitely send probably closer to September. I think we need probably another couple of weeks, but it's almost done. We're almost ready, just little tweaks and changes. So I'm going to send that as well.
Well, see, there you go. So the book comes out, the course comes out. We've got a couple things to talk about. We know we're going to talk again now because we've got to talk now after you talk about a book you've written for 9 years. We've got to have you come back on and talk about it.
Oh yeah, well it was what's the name of the blogs, right? So I would have a thought and I would put it in with the name and then this year because it goes more to podcasts, not a lot of people read anymore. So I'm like, you know what, I'm transitioning, I'm sharing it
Totally.
in different way. And so I finished that this year from 2016. I put it all together. I went through it, I fixed it, and I put it into this thing. It's like an extension of me. So it's very dear to my heart. Everything that's in there. I've lived it, I've experienced that. I work with people with those problems too. So it's a piece of me.
Love it. Love it. We've got
Mhm.
great stuff to talk about the next time you come on. So again, make sure you
Awesome.
get us that information so we include it in the show notes. And
I
then once
will.
everything's out, we'll do it again.
How do we connect? Do you have like social media or what's the best way?
Yeah. So you've got our email address. We're on Instagram. We're on X.
Let me
I'm
find you right
almost
now.
never on X because I look at X. It's kind of like just a cesspool of people yelling at each other. I don't have much use for X, formerly Twitter, but we're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. You've got our email address.
Oh, I found
Anyway,
you. Okay,
yep.
perfect.
Any way
Okay,
that
I got
works
you
for
on,
you
on
works for us.
Instagram. Yeah, I follow
And
you on Instagram.
I was gonna say I got a cell phone too if that works for you. Whatever, it doesn't matter to me.
Okay, let's do that just in case. So in case if there's any question or anything, I'm gonna send you a text too. Okay, what is it?
It's 603 eight
603.
five two
Mm-hmm.
2768.
I'm gonna text you right now. I hope it's the right number.
I didn't give you a
Six
fake
oh
number.
603. I think I wrote it differently. 603-852-2768.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, perfect.
That's a
Okay.
funny story on that. The night I met my wife, um, she thought about giving me, so she was, it's actually a funny story. She was uh, drunk, and I don't drink at all. I've never been drunk in my life, and I got nothing against it. It's just not my thing. But she was drunk and climbed out of a car at an intersection to come talk to me because she saw me standing on the corner. And I'm no dummy. They have this absolutely fucking gorgeous chick coming over to talk to me. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm gonna see where this goes for sure. And so I got her phone number, and she said I actually thought about giving you a fake phone number because I was kind of embarrassed that I climbed out of that car to come talk to you. And I was like, can you imagine if you had, like, here we are 33 years later, what if she'd given me a bum phone number and I hadn't been able to get in touch with her? Because I
That's
guarantee you
funny.
I called her. I guarantee you I called her quick.
Of course, I bet. Oh, it's
Yeah.
33 years. That's an incredible time. What's the secret of a happy marriage?
I don't think it's a real secret. I genuinely care about my wife and want her to be happy and want good things for her. And she genuinely cares about me and wants good things for me. And we try to live our lives in a way that demonstrates that to each other. And when we fuck it up, we fix it quickly and we apologize and we fix the behavior going forward. I really
Hmm.
think it's that basic at its core. Is it easy to do? No, not
Hmm.
easy to do at all because, life gets pretty hectic pretty quick. We had three kids. We were very young when we got married. We were
Hmm.
21. I was 21. She was 19. And we started having kids right away. And life can get complicated and busy, and it can be
Yes,
easy
of
to
course.
forget about those things. But if you can keep them front and center, that's your best chance, I think, at least.
I love that. Well, thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Mhm. Sure. There you
Yeah.
are. I've got you. You're 786-343-7984, right?
That's me. Yep.
Excellent. I'm just going to lock you into my phone right now.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, very, very nice to see you again and to be on the show and look forward to the future collaboration too.
Yeah, look, I knew you were going to be awesome. You didn't disappoint. Super excited about it. So we'll do it again a few months down
Awesome.
the road.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All
Nice
right.
seeing
Thanks,
you.
Lisa.
And
Have a great
yeah,
week. All right.
you too. Bye.
Bye. Okay, guys. So, like we said, Alisa is awesome. So, loved her story. Uh, how many of us, I don't know if I would have done it. She literally moved to a different country, 7,000 miles away from everything she knew and didn't speak the language when she got over here and worked her way up into the career she has now in the mental health field. Was very candid and open about some of the challenges and tough experiences that she faced that made her kind of confront where she was and where she wanted to go to with her life. And then all of the great stuff she talked about in terms of EMDR, CBT, somatic healing, spiritual healing, and everything as it relates to just the therapy that she offers and traumatic therapy. So, what a great lady. Life coach, remember? She told us at the end of the podcast, like after we got off with you guys, that she's got a book coming out. She talked about her course that's coming out. So lots of different ways to work with her. Super glad that we had her on. We're going to have her back on somewhere in the future. I stayed on with her, made sure we had each other's contact information so we can get her back on the program after both her book and her course come out so we can have another great conversation with her. So really appreciate Alisa coming on. Super, super impressed with her just as a human being. What a great lady. So head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All our podcast episodes are there. Links, all the social media accounts are there. We publish a newsletter every weekday. You can subscribe to there. Make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe to the podcast, whatever platform you consume it on. Super helpful for us. Join the thousands of people who've already done it. Make sure you don't miss the next episode with the awesome people that we have on that give you all sorts of ideas and approaches and training and ways to change how you think about the world so you can build the life that you want. If you're looking to build a life of purpose and take control of your life and really control your own destiny, Salty Ginger Talk is a place for you. You don't want to miss the next episode. We'll see you there.